The gunfire erupted in broad daylight on a residential street in Minneapolis, turning a routine immigration operation into a fatal confrontation that has the entire nation on edge. Shocking bystander footage captured the chaotic moments as federal agents surrounded a white SUV, followed by a rapid succession of shots that ended the life of Renee Nicole Good. Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother of two, was pronounced dead at the scene, leaving her family and the community demanding answers from the Department of Homeland Security. The Trump administration and ICE officials are standing by the agents' actions, claiming they were forced to use deadly force when the suspect attempted to use her vehicle as a weapon. But the story being told on the ground by eyewitnesses and through leaked cell phone clips is painting a far more complicated and controversial picture of what happened on Wednesday. The timeline of the tragedy began at approximately 2 p.m. when ICE agents tracked Good to a parking lot as part of an ongoing immigration enforcement operation. According to federal statements, agents attempted to box in Good's SUV, but they allege she shifted into gear and accelerated toward an officer who was standing in her path. This graphic cell phone video shows the moments the SUV lurches forward, immediately followed by several agents drawing their weapons and firing directly into the driver's side window. State and local officials in Minnesota have been quick to point out discrepancies between the federal narrative and the visual evidence currently available to the public. Local police were notably absent from the operation, a move that highlights the growing rift between federal immigration enforcement and sanctuary city leadership. By Wednesday evening, the neighborhood where Good was killed had transformed into a site of mourning and intense protest, with hundreds gathering to decry the use of lethal force. The impact of the Renee Nicole Good shooting was felt almost immediately across the country, as it ignited a dormant powder keg of tension regarding federal police powers. In Portland, Oregon, just 48 hours later, 2 more individuals were shot by federal agents during a similar operation, leading to claims of a systemic shoot-first policy. Civil rights attorneys are now analyzing the Minneapolis video frame by frame, questioning if the agent in the SUV's path was actually in imminent danger when the trigger was pulled. Legal experts point out that the Supreme Court has long debated the fleeing felon rule, but the use of a car as a deadly weapon often provides a legal shield for officers. The rhetoric from Washington has been uncompromising, with federal authorities labeling the protesters in Minneapolis as agitators who are targeting law enforcement. Federal arrests have already begun in the Twin Cities, as DHS moves to secure federal property and crack down on those they claim are using the shooting to incite violence. This crackdown has only served to deepen the divide, as community leaders argue that the federal response is a distraction from the fact that a mother was killed in front of witnesses. Human rights organizations are now calling for a full, independent investigation, arguing that ICE cannot be trusted to investigate its own fatal use of force. The case has become a focal point for the 2026 midterm discourse, as politicians on both sides use the Minneapolis incident to frame the debate on border security and police reform. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey expressed his deep concern, stating that the lack of communication from federal agencies puts both citizens and local officers at risk. On the other side, ICE spokesperson Sarah Thompson defended the agents, saying our officers face split-second decisions to protect their lives against those who choose violence. An attorney for the Good family, holding a photo of Renee with her 2 children, addressed the media, calling the shooting an execution of an unarmed woman who was terrified. Former law enforcement analysts are split. Some suggest the agents followed protocol when the vehicle moved, while others argue that de-escalation was never attempted. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has called for the release of all federal body camera and dashboard footage to provide the transparency that the city of Minneapolis is begging for. The FBI has confirmed it is opening a preliminary inquiry into the shooting, but for many in the north side of Minneapolis, the trust in federal oversight has already vanished. As the investigation moves forward, the city remains under a heavy security presence, with National Guard units on standby to prevent further escalations during nightly vigils. Renee Nicole Good's name has now joined a list of controversial law enforcement shootings that have defined the social landscape of the mid-2020s. With more protests planned and federal agencies doubling down on their enforcement tactics, the situation in Minneapolis remains a flashpoint for a nation deeply divided over justice. The world is watching as Minneapolis once again becomes the epicenter of a fight for accountability, transparency, and the value of a life caught in the crosshairs of federal policy.